Hello and welcome to the She Reads Romance Books podcast, the ultimate show for romance book lovers looking for the best books worth reading. I'm your host, Leslie Murphy, and in each short episode, I share my favorite book list of recommendations so you know exactly what to add to your must-read list. Join me as I explore the romance genre and have fun collecting book boyfriends along the way, because life is better with a love story. Hello, all. I am so excited for you to check out my latest interview. But before I get to my special guest, I want to remind you that my new, very festive and very fun book quiz that helps you identify your ideal holiday book boyfriend is live now, but only until the end of the month. So if you haven't yet taken the quiz and found your new favorite holiday book boyfriend and gotten your personalized book recommendation from me, then hop on over to shereadsromancebooks.com and take the quiz, or you can click on the link in the show notes below. Also, if you are looking for the perfect holiday romance book, check out all of my holiday book lists on my Holiday Romance Hub for 2024's new Christmas romance books list, the best holiday novellas, the best spicy Christmas romance books, the best Christmas books on Kindle Unlimited, and so many more book lists to find there. So again, check out the link in the notes for that. And then lastly, 2025 is right around the corner, folks, which means so is my 2025 romance book reading challenge. You can sign up now for the challenge so that you can get my free printable as well as get my emails that will keep you in the loop for the challenge with book recommendations and more little inside scoops on that. So I really hope that you sign up for my 2025 romance book reading challenge. And I have also, very exciting, announced our January and our February books of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club. And oh my gosh, I cannot wait for everybody to read these amazing books from such popular and wonderful authors who will be joining us for our author Q&A sessions in January and February. So head on over to shereadsromancebooks.com/book club. See what our January and February books and authors are. I'm not going to surprise you here. You have to go over and take a look. And then I really hope that you sign up for the club. Now, on to today's episode. All right. Hello, readers. Welcome back to the She Reads Romance Books podcast, where today I am joined by a very special romance author who is crushing it when it comes to inclusivity and body positivity in romance books. She has a new romance release coming out this week, How to Get a Life in 10 Dates, that we are going to talk all about and so much more. So welcome to the podcast, Jenny Howe. Yay!
Thank you. I don't have like a big printout of this one yet, so we just gotta have the art.
I love the cover. It is so pretty.
Thank
Oh
you.
my
They
gosh.
did a great job. And I
They
feel
really
like
did.
the layout's really different because so many romance covers, you just have the couple centered.
Mhm.
And so this one, the like composition's a little different, which I love.
And the heroine's dress, the pink, just like pops. Like
I know, she looks so good.
She does. Yes, yes, yes. Well, for readers tuning in who aren't familiar with the book that releases this week, like I said, can you give us a little summary about How to Get a Life in 10 Dates?
Sure. So, How to Get a Life in 10 Dates is about Haley, who is sick of dating, as I think happens to most people at some point in their life. But her sister has this like huge engagement party slash law school graduation coming up. And her parents and or her mom and her grandfather and her sister are putting a lot of pressure on her to bring a +1. And so she says to her family and two of her close friends, I'm done. I'm going to let you guys all set me up on 2 dates. And when they go terribly, as they always do,
Right?
you have to leave me alone and let me be single for a while and bring no one to this party and have that be okay. And so everybody agrees. And one of the people setting her up is her best friend, Jack, who she has secretly been in love with pretty much her whole life. And some of the dates go great, some of the dates don't. And then, just as she's thinking she might have found someone, Jack throws himself in the mix. And so the second half of the book is really about her figuring out who is the right choice for her, someone new or this person that she has been in love with for so long.
Oh my gosh, yes, the tension of that choice that comes with it. Well, I love it. So how did the idea of the story even come about? Take us to the beginning.
So I feel like dating sucks. I am an old married woman. I've been married for 18 years at this point. But I read a lot about dating, and I have friends who were single for a long time. And it seems to suck even more now that it's all online.
Right? Yeah.
And and then there's another layer when you're plus size, right? And I had spent a lot of time like watching TikToks and Instagram reels and listening to people who are plus size talk about how difficult online dating is when you are in a body that is not considered ideal. And I originally wanted to write a story that was about that, but then quickly realized, like, oh God, this is going to be depressing, right? Like, it's so bad. And so I wanted to give hints of that, but I wanted this to be a book where Haley ends up feeling loved and that love helping her sort of embrace who she is. And so I had to like rejigger what the story was. So now she goes on all these dates, but they're set up by people she knows and who know her, and everyone knows she's fat. So her body never plays a part in it. But I also just like really love 90s and early aughts rom-coms. If the title sort of hints at that,
I know.
a real inspiration of like with all the dating montages and sort of a little bit more. I feel like while there's a lot going on with mental health in this book, it is lighter than my two others and more of a sort of joyous romp through dating and love. And that was largely because I was thinking about, I want to write a book that's like those rom-coms with like Reese Witherspoon and Katherine Heigl and like all of those rom-coms.
All the good ones.
Right? That we don't get enough of anymore.
No, for sure. And I'm always afraid I'm going to say the title wrong because I go for the movie title at
right?
first. I'm like, oh, wait, I got to think for a second. Say it right. But I do. It totally has that spirit, like you said, of those movies. And I love that. And I totally felt for her because she's only 25 and she's already like, dude, I'm ready to go on a dating sabbatical because this sucks. Right? And she's so young to be feeling that. And you're right. Well, of course you're right. You wrote it, but she said, like, first and foremost, with whoever you set me up with, they have to know that I'm fat. And then she gave them a questionnaire, which I loved, right? Because we're like,
that's what I think a dating questionnaire should really look like. Who cares about like the turn offs and turn ons or whatever? Yeah. I want to know, would you drive the car or bury the body?
Yes.
Because that tells me so much about you.
It was probably really hard to narrow it down to make it a short, questionnaire, because I could have added like 10 more. What is it? Right. Well, I do love that it centers on Haley and her frustration with dating, but then also this year-long crush on her best friend. What do you think, readers will just love most about her, this heroine, because there's so much to love.
I mean, I think that she's just who she is and trying to learn to be okay with that. So like one of the messages, in my opinion, of the book is that messes can be beautiful, right? Because I think even at 25, there's this sense that we're supposed to know exactly what our life is going to look like and that we should be on track for the house and the kids and the marriage and the 401k and this and that. And you can be made to feel like you're doing something wrong when your life doesn't look like that, right? Like Haley tried a corporate job and it was really bad for her mental health. And so she's trying to find a career and like a work path that works for her, but can also help build her a life of security and stability, while hearing from like her family that she's doing it all wrong, right? And she is determined to not go back down a path that was destructive for her just because that's what everyone else says she's going to do.
Right.
And she ends up being able to find the right kind of path for her in the end. But I think that sort of being willing to be who you are, even when it feels like everybody's telling you that's wrong, is one of my favorite things about her, right? Like she's messy. Like I love that her room's just like always a mess. And she kind of just says what she thinks, and she just is who she is.
She is who she is. That's exactly what I wrote. I said, like, I totally felt for her because she thinks, I mean, she's a mess and she's been called that by people who she loves, right? And I think a lot of people, especially women, feel this certain pressure to check all the boxes by a certain age. And she's not quite there yet. And yet she has her sister who has checked all the boxes and then some, right?
Absolutely.
Right next to her. And so, yes, I really loved that message that like, you're cool, you're right where you're supposed to be,
right. And you're 25.
And you're 25.
It's okay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I see, so I work with, I'm a college professor, so I see students putting that kind of pressure on themselves, sometimes at 19, that they have to know what their major is, what they're going to do when they come out, how they're going to be making enough money, and all of those things are important, but also you have time to work that out, right? Some people don't end up in the career that's right for them until they're in their 40s.
Exactly.
And that's okay, right?
Those are the golden years, or even 50. I'm thinking like, I hold up some of those gems who like finally got it at 50, because it's like, that's finally when you know who you are and what your passions are, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. There's always time.
Always time. But she was very brave and bold about involving her mother, her grandfather, roommates, friends, in saying, okay, try, have at it. You think this is easy, find me the perfect person, then you'll see.
Right.
Because I don't know that I would do this.
She was that fed up.
She was. She was. Oh my gosh. Yes. Did you have so much fun like creating the people that she was going to go on these dates with? Because there are some doozies.
Yes. I've had a lot of fun writing all of my books, but particularly the first half of that book, the bird.
Oh my gosh, the favorite. Bird.
I don't want to spoil it, but the bird, I was cackling while I was writing it. And then
I was like, girl, I would have turned right around. Like I wouldn't have even stayed as long as she did. But,
well, it was funny because my editor felt like in earlier versions, she was a little too judgmental. Okay. And the bird wasn't in there yet. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, she's trying real hard, right? To just say, all right, like, this is the thing that works for him, and let's see how this goes. And then the next draft, my editor was like, she can judge the bird a little. That's okay.
That's okay.
And then like the oyster scene was also, I was having the time of my life.
I can imagine. I was like picturing that as I was reading it. Like if I was someone in the restaurant, like envisioning this, I don't know what I would have done, but yeah.
I had, because the joys of writing romance books, right, are they're contemporary, they're set in the real world, but it's still fiction, right? So you can kind of push at the ridiculousness
right
a little bit more.
It's got to be fun. Yeah, I got to make it fun for you, for sure, and the reader. Absolutely. Well, I loved Haley, loved her message and her story. And so the hero of the story, what do you think readers are going to love about him?
I mean, I think, I see readers talk all the time about like loving stories where like he falls first. And I think a lot of the struggle in getting this book right was not having it be so clear from the very beginning that Jack was like all in, right? And finding this balance between having because the challenge with writing, I like single point of view romance books. I think there's appeals to both. I prefer writing and sometimes even reading the single point of view because I like not knowing any more than the main character, right?
Right.
And so it becomes a different kind of frustration and a different kind of anticipation. And so
Sure.
making sure that I'm telegraphing to readers that yes, like Jack loves her,
Mhm.
but not in a way that Haley should have picked up on as easily, was
Mhm.
a lot of real like tightrope walking. And it
Yes.
took me a while to get that right, but he really is just like a good-hearted man who
Mhm.
sees her for who she is
Mhm.
and loves the whole package.
Mhm.
Right.
And they touch on this, the whole, well, one aspect about friends to lovers trope is that, like, do you take that risk, or
Right.
we already did once, and what do we do with it? And that's a real struggle, right?
Right.
And yeah, so I think that was a little intense.
Yeah. And like, I honestly didn't mean for this to become an actual like tension filled love triangle. But then
Yeah,
Brian was like, hello, here I am.
I
And I
loved
just
him.
keep hearing, I didn't know who to pick. Some people wish she'd picked Brian. And like, I get that. But like, she wanted her person, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it was about figuring out, like, now I realize I might have just spoiled things, but I feel like it's best friends to lovers, right? Like,
Yeah,
but she
for
wanted her person. And I think that she figured out over the course of her journey who that was, right? Like, she had a very particular idea of what she wanted from a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I mean, for a while there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like love triangle territory. I'm like, I don't know who she should pick. I like them both for her, So yeah, it was really, really good in that sense. But when normally like love triangles that give me such angst, but
Sure.
this one, like, I was like, okay, I got this, and like how it all wrapped itself up.
But I wanted to write two just good guys, right?
Yes,
Where it's
yes,
not like Brian does something
right.
that impacts her choice, or that Jack does something that impacts her choice. It is really about her thinking about like what is best for me and have really good
And you
options.
didn't make it so easy that it was like, oh my God, you have bird
Right.
guy versus Jack. Like, hello, no choice there, right? But this made it like she really had to think
Right.
about it. And yeah, so that was, yeah, absolutely. But what I also love about Jack is so much, the fantasy of writing romance, like you said, like so many romance heroes can be almost too perfect, right? Because we kind of want them to be
Mhm.
sometimes. But Jack, he had his issues that he was struggling with, right? And I think I really appreciated that about him, that and those issues that affected their relationship. So yeah, I appreciated that piece of him. And was that important to you to like give him?
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think if you've seen anything I ever post on Instagram, you know this about me. I think it's really important to make romance more inclusive in all of the ways: race, culture, disability, body size, neurodivergence, etc. Because sexuality, etc. Because romance books and stories tell the public who gets to have a happily ever after, right? Or who gets a
Mm.
romance. And for a very long time, it has been the tiny little heroine and the guy with all the muscles who's only nice to her, right?
And the money.
Right. That's
Yeah.
rich and it has it all together and is just like, stellar in the bedroom, but also like, doesn't only shows himself to her, and he's very manly elsewhere. And I understand the fantasy of that, right? And I'm not saying that those books shouldn't exist, but it's telling us something very specific about who popular culture thinks deserves a romance. And when you grow up in that as someone who doesn't fit into those categories, you start to feel like you are never going to
Mm.
have that, right? Like, I spent all of my teen years and most of my 20s thinking I would never fall in love. Well, not most of my 20s, because I met my husband when I was 23. But like, so all of my teen years and the start of my 20s, thinking I would never find somebody who loved me that I love too, because I never saw that anywhere. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Mm-hmm.
the thing I want to be part of change for. But not just for people who identify as women, but also,
Mm-hmm.
right, like the fact that Jack has anxiety and has some level of OCD, is in therapy, and is
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable enough to talk to her, Haley, about these things, I think is hugely important, because men are told they're not allowed to have mental health issues, right?
Right.
That makes
Right.
them weak or something. And
Right.
that is so dangerous. And
Mm-hmm.
also Jack
Or
is
not the perfect partner.
right.
Right.
Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
Jack is also a plus size man. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so opening up the gates of what it means to be hot and what it means to be a good book boyfriend, right? To allow for more types of cishet men to be seen in those, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that romance can be damaging for men in that way too, right? And so I'm
Right.
glad to see we're getting so many more queer romances from varieties of identities. We're starting to see more romances with not only neurodivergence, but like physical disabilities. Like, out on a limb,
I love that book.
like,
Oh my gosh.
I will throw that book at anybody who dares to say, do you have romance wrecks? Right. And I love all of Hannah's books, and Hannah does amazing things in all of her books. But that book, to have two main characters with physical disabilities that are not invisible,
Right.
and to be such a sexy, sweet, amazing romance, was so important. Right. And I think we need to continue to see that.
And I think what you said at the beginning was really important too. So it's not just seeing a character that represents a whole spectrum, even like as a side character, but it's having them as the main characters
Absolutely.
and getting that happily ever after, like
Absolutely.
you said.
And having them be
Yeah.
written by people who really understand the nuance of living in that identity, right?
Right.
Like, I think that there are things, like, for instance, for me, about being fat. I can tell immediately when someone who has never lived in a bigger body writes a fat character. Like, you can, when you share those identities, you can tell very quickly, right? And which is why I think it's so important that we're seeing gay men starting to write queer romances too, because for so long that was the domain of often straight women who were writing these romances and missing that nuance, and I think sometimes accidentally stumbling into fetishism, or not accidentally, whatever the case may be. But like, I think that to get those authentic, like, genuine experiences of what it is to be in a relationship with two men is so important, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And same
Absolutely.
for like Sapphic and the whole spectrum, to have them
The
written
whole
by
spectrum.
people who know what that means and have lived in those bodies and those experiences makes a huge difference in like the kind of representation you're getting.
Well, and I love that you had her go on dates with
Right.
women, in this book, right? So yeah,
She's bi. And it's
she's
never,
bi,
like, I don't
turning it
even think
all
she
up.
ever says it in the book. It's just who she is. She dates women, she dates men,
Yeah.
and that's just who she is. And she ends up with a man, but that doesn't make her any less bi.
Right. Right.
Which is like the thing, right? Like, the thing that makes bisexuality so hard is you often get labeled by the relationship you're in, right? If you are in a hetero seeming relationship, then you're not queer.
Right. Exactly.
And if you are in a queer looking relationship, but then you date somebody that your relationship suddenly looks hetero, that's a problem, right? Like, bi people exist too. And they remain bi no matter what kind of relationship.
Right. Exactly. Who they choose as their partner. So back to, you had mentioned the awesome rom-coms of the 90s and stuff. So maybe When Harry Met Sally came out before then. I can't remember. Maybe it was early.
I think that was late 80s, early 90s.
So, well, in that movie and other books, and bring up the topic of like men and women cannot just be friends, right? I don't know. Do you subscribe to that, or do you feel like, I don't know, because they talked about that, where they've been friends forever, her and Jack, but then it sort of became more and then not, but then could it really go back? Because can they really just be friends? I don't know.
I mean, I think so. For Haley and Jack, they were never just friends, right? There was always something more there. I think that they always both had feelings for each other, but didn't know what to do about that. And so then it exploded on that trip they took, and everything went to hell. And then they became afraid of it. I do think you could be friends. I mean, it's hard too, because like I'm in my 40s and I've been married for a long time, and all of my friends are married, and like I have male friends, but like they're married and I'm married, and it's not
right.
I maybe it's more complicated when you're single, but also like everybody is not attracted to every person in a body that's the kind they're attracted to, right? So like I think it's perfectly possible for men and women to be friends, but not if one of them has feelings.
I agree. Yes.
Is that, do you know what I mean? Like if you both aren't interested in each other,
that's hard.
I feel like that can work. If somebody has feelings and can't move beyond them, then it gets to be tricky. One gets hurt.
Yeah, that's yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we talked about some of the hinted at some of the horrible dates that she went on and that weren't quite myths, but I loved when a certain someone took her to the arcade, and I just had to say that I would be right there with her playing skee ball the entire time. I don't know what is it about that game, but I'm like, I just want to keep doing it. I freaking love it.
And
it took my kid. Yeah.
My editor had to take out a 3-page description of skee ball that in there just to really show you
what skee ball is. Yeah.
She was like, I'm glad you know this now, Jenny, but like we don't need this.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, I was even like, I can't believe she's explaining it, because who doesn't know what skee ball
I don't
is?
like
I mean,
those,
it's the greatest game ever.
Gen Z kids. I don't know what they know.
No, absolutely. But I loved that part. So that was one of my absolute favorites. And I also have to say, you said in the acknowledgments that you wrote half of this book at your local bookstore, An Unlikely Story. And I just have to say how much I love that bookstore. So I used to live in Southern Massachusetts, and so I would take my kids up there all the time, because Jeff Kinney brings like the best authors, including you, for like signings and stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool, because I could like envision you there like writing it, because that place is really cool.
I mean, I have had the pleasure of meeting and forming relationships with a lot of amazing bookstores in the Massachusetts and Rhode Island and New Hampshire area. And I love them all. But because I live closest to An Unlikely Story, I spend a lot of my time there, and they have been, first of all, it's just such a great bookstore, and they do great events, but they have like the staff has just embraced me, and they are so supportive of me. I now run a romance book club once a month through them with one of their staff members. Like they just like, I'll come up to them with a silly idea and they're like, let's do it, right? Like they're just, it's an amazing bookstore, and worth, I think, the trip if you don't live near it.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's just, it's cute inside. It's got the little cabinet, but it's just their events are really awesome.
They have the space, which some bookstores just, unfortunately, because the space they're in don't, but they have that whole second floor that they're able to fill. And they do their events staff are just incredible. It's like a well-oiled machine.
It is. It's nice to see an independent store like succeed so well. I mean, with Jeff at the helm, of course, but I miss it a lot. So yeah.
It's still there whenever you want to come.
It's still there. I'm just not there. Yeah. And one more thing I have to say about this story is that I love, so it can absolutely be read as a standalone, right? But I love that we get a little bit of Stanton from on the plus side. I mean, that was my first entree into your work, and I freaking loved that book. It was like so hard. I just love Logan to death, but
I had a lot of problems with this book, particularly Brian, because Brian and Logan know each other. And my editor kept going, every love interest can't be Logan. I had to do a lot of work to give Brian his own life, because I was just like, why can't you just love dogs the same way Logan does?
because he's amazing and we want more Logan.
Right?
So I totally get it. Yes, absolutely. Oh.
I like
So if anyone hasn't read On the Plus Side yet, they have to circle back to that one because it's incredible.
so
Yeah.
one of her so everybody comes back for this one because we do see Logan and Everly in at least one scene. I couldn't let go of Stanton. So when I was like deciding how this book hooks up, because I love same universe books where you don't you could pick one up and it's fine and then read the others and get really excited because like you recognize these people and stuff.
Yes.
Without them being series. And so I wanted this one. It was the last one in this universe. And so I wanted everybody to I wanted the parade of like, here's everybody. And so you do see Allison and Colin from the makeup test who were also in On the Plus Side, but you had to know it was them. It's like a real
Easter egg.
You could miss it and that's fine moment. But I couldn't let go of Stanton. I loved Stanton so much that I was like, Stanton's coming into this book. So making her his roommate was like a really nice way to connect the worlds without Haley having to be part of On the Plus Side and be rehashing that too much. But one of her very bad dates is a character from the makeup test who I loved to hate while writing him in the makeup test and was so excited. So the poetry reading.
Oh, yes.
So if you read the makeup test at some point, he will suddenly be very familiar.
Okay, gotcha.
And then you see Allison and Colin on that date too. So everybody kind of comes back.
Perfect. Love it. Oh my gosh. Well, if you have time, I'd love to ask you a few more questions about you as the reader for our book club members. But is there anything else that you want listeners to know about how to get a life in 10 dates and then share where we can find you online?
Just that, like, I think it's a lot of fun and a good, it comes out in December, but it's a good beach read if you're going anywhere in the winter months. And I just hope it brings people some joy. There are, so trigger warnings, there is talk of like anxiety and some OCD on the page. There's some panic attacks and things of that nature, but everybody's okay. And there's some talk of parent death off the page as well, just in case those things are difficult for people. I can be found at Jenny L. House, all one word, on Instagram and Threads. I pretend to be on TikTok, but I basically just lurk. And my website, which desperately needs to be updated, is jennylhowe.com.
And there you have it, folks. It was a blast talking with Jenny and hearing more about how to get a life in 10 dates, which is out this week. So be sure to go out and grab it. If you would like to hear more from Jenny, you can gain instant access to my exclusive extended interview as a video where you can see her and hear more about Jenny, the reader, why she loves reading romance, her favorite romance reads and tropes that she loves, and so much more when you join the She Reads Romance Books book club. And if you join the annual membership, you can also get my A Year of Reading Romance card deck included for free. So come on over to the club. You will definitely love it. And as an early holiday gift to me, I would so love it if you would drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify to show your love for this podcast. It would be so wonderful. And I thank you so, so much. Thanks so much for tuning in for this episode. And until next time, as always, happy reading because life is better with a love story. That's all for this episode of the She Reads Romance Books podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and found some new books to add to your TBR list. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. It really helps me reach more romance book lovers like you, and I appreciate your support. If you're a book boyfriend collector like me, then you'll want to join my email list so you never miss a podcast episode or a new book list. Just visit shereadsromancebooks.com/join and sign up today. As a thank you, I'll instantly send you my list of top 10 book boyfriends that will make you swoon. Trust me, you don't want to miss this list.
Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.